For millennia, the monuments of ancient Egypt, particularly those on the Giza plateau, have captivated the human imagination. Standing before them, it's impossible not to feel something beyond time, a sense of awe that words can barely describe. Even the ancient Egyptians who inherited these structures seem to have looked back on them with reverence and mystery. But here's the thing, based on the models we use today, many of these structures simply shouldn't exist. Granite, shaped and polished as if it were marble, yet it's one of the hardest stones on Earth, blocks the size of buses, and statues and obelisks the size of ships moved hundreds of miles from the quarries deep in the south of Egypt without pulleys, wheels, or iron tools. For thousands of years, these works have defied explanation, and when you look closely, not just at the scale, but at the precision as well, the story we're told begins to feel incomplete because what we see in stone and what our current model of history tells us just don't quite match up. So is it possible that the story of ancient Egyptian history that we've been told is wrong? Hey everyone, I'm Dan, and this is Ancient Eyes Odyssey, where we explore the wonders of the ancient world, learn their stories, and discover the mysteries still hidden to time. Let's jump into it. The accepted model by archaeologists says that these monuments were built around 2500 BC by the Old Kingdom Egyptians, a civilization of remarkable creativity, but limited in technology during the early Bronze Age. They're said to have used copper chisels, dolerite pounding stones, wooden sledges and rope, but with no wheels, no pulleys, no steel, not even iron. At this time, through sheer manpower and the organizational skill of a national project, the story goes, they raised monuments that have stood the test of time for thousands of years. It's incredibly remarkable. These structures were ancient to the ancients, and it's a compelling story. And by no means should we underestimate the dynastic Egyptians. They were capable of remarkable feats, artists, engineers, and builders whose accomplishments still inspire us today. Their architecture, mathematics, and astronomy always seem to be ahead of the rest of their ancient contemporaries as well. But even so, there's elements of these monuments that seem to go beyond what the available tools and methods can explain, and that's where the model begins to break down. We all build models of the world, frameworks that help us survive, adapt, and make sense of what we see around us. But if you have a background in science or engineering, you learn to develop these models in a systematic way, testing, refining, and improving them as new data comes in. When the model no longer matches what we observe, we don't just ignore the data, we have to improve the model. Newton's laws, for example, were revolutionary and described the motion of objects we see around us incredibly precisely, but they break down at the cosmic scale, and it took until Einstein to correct that issue with orbital mechanics. And in the same way, what we see in Egypt suggests our historical model might need an upgrade as well. There's no better place to start than the only ancient wonder that still survives today, the Great Pyramid of Giza. This is a masterpiece of engineering, built out of roughly 2.3 million blocks, each precisely placed, and it rose roughly 481 feet above the ground. The structure's also aligned with true north to an accuracy of roughly 3/60ths of a degree. How do they even know what true north was back in this time frame? The Great Pyramid measures roughly 756 feet by 756 feet at its base. To build something like that today, on this scale, we'd have to leverage lasers to be able to even attempt that sort of accuracy and precision. There's incredible mysteries inside as well, like the granite beams inside the King's Chamber, which weigh up to 80 tons each and are hundreds of feet in the air, and have been transported from over 500 miles away, all the way from the south of Egypt at the quarry at Aswan. It's suggested that the builders may have used ramps to transport the stones into these remarkable heights. But to keep the slope gentle enough to haul stones of this size, the ramp itself would have measured nearly a mile long and contained almost as much material as the Great Pyramid itself. And there's absolutely no trace of it on the Giza plateau. Now, people have shown it's possible to move stones of several tons using primitive methods and tools, but only at very small scales. And as Elon says, it's one thing to make a prototype, and it's another thing entirely to produce at scale. You may be able to carve one block and transport it in lab conditions, but to cut, move, and align millions of them hundreds of feet in the air, that's another level entirely. The Great Pyramid looks anything but improvised. It looks configured, manufactured, and designed to exact tolerances. More machine than monument. And that's something you can't help but notice when you stand inside the structure itself. The Grand Gallery particularly feels engineered. Its blocks, angled and slotted like parts out of a mechanism. And then there's the resonance, the way the sound frequencies in its chambers seem to amplify and harmonize is something you can't help but notice throughout the entire structure. That's just a few of the anomalies of the Great Pyramid, which is such a mystery you could spend hours on it alone. But we see the same remarkable types of construction and precision across ancient Egypt. At the Valley Temple, the Osirian, and many other Old Kingdom megalithic sites, you'll find massive granite blocks locked together in complex, interlocking jigsaw patterns. No mortar, no gaps. So flat and smooth, you can't slip a razor blade between them. In places like the Third Pyramid, Menkaru's Pyramid on the Giza Plateau, the Osirian, and the quarries at Aswan, we also see strange, curved scoop marks. Not random pockmarks from hammerstones, but smooth arcs, as if the rock was sliced away in layers. Experimental archaeology has tried to reproduce this with dolerite pounding stones and sand. It's possible, but excruciatingly slow and nowhere near this precise. Whatever technique was used here, it wasn't primitive. It was purposeful, elegant, and far beyond what copper and dolerite pounding stones would seem to allow. We also see other forms of cutting that raise even more questions. Deep saw cuts and overcuts, and circular drill marks found around many Old Kingdom sites, at places like Giza, Abu Sir, and all the way to places like Elephantine Island down in Aswan. Amongst the most famous is Petrie's Core No. 7, a granite core discovered in the 19th century by the famous British Egyptologist Flinders Petrie that still shows the spiral grooves of the tool that cut it. Under examination by machinists and engineers like Chris Dunn, the spiral pattern suggests an incredibly deep penetration rate, far more than what copper and sand could alone achieve. If the measurements are correct, it would mean a penetration rate greater than what modern, diamond-tipped drills on the same granite material could achieve. It's one of those rare, physical pieces of evidence with impeccable provenance that seems to defy the technological limits we assign to that era. And what's also mystifying is this same type of megalithic stonework appears around the world as well. In Peru, at places like Sacsayhuaman and others, you see the same tight, interlocking blocks in polygonal shapes, and even the same scoop marks and nubs, as if the builders were able to shape the stone as if it were clay. Similar techniques show up in other places as well, some as far afield as Japan. Different continents, different cultures, but the same engineering signature. Vast blocks, precision joints, and tool marks that don't fit the conventional toolkit of what their supposed eras were capable of. It's hard not to wonder whether these sites share a deeper connection or echo a lost method once known more widely than we can imagine. One of the most astounding examples of that sits in the quarry at Aswan with the unfinished obelisk. Nearly 1,000 tons of granite, half cut from the bedrock with the infamous scoop marks. It's believed to have been abandoned after a fracture, perhaps during excavation, though we can't be sure entirely. Even today, some of our largest cranes would struggle to lift this remarkable obelisk, and that's not even taking into account the difficult terrain that would need to be managed inside the quarry itself. So if you could even free these from the bedrock, how would you set up a system to lift them out? Yet the quarry workers and stonemasons of the Old Kingdom apparently attempted it. Had they succeeded, it would have been one of the largest stones ever moved by human hands. How they planned to transport it afterwards also remains a mystery in and of itself as well. Even beyond the pyramids and obelisks, Egypt is littered with statues carved from single blocks of stone so massive they almost defy belief. At the Ramesseum near Luxor, the fallen statue of Ramses the Great is carved from rose granite brought from Aswan nearly 200 miles away and is estimated to weigh around 1,000 tons. Nearby, the twin colossi of Memnon stand nearly 60 feet tall and weigh roughly 700 tons apiece. How these statues were carved, transported down the Nile, and set upright with such precision is one of the most staggering achievements of the ancient world, and they're not alone. At Karnak, Tanis, and across sites all over Egypt, fragments of equally enormous statues still lie scattered across the landscape. Silent evidence of a mastery of stone we still can't fully comprehend. Above ground, we see monuments to power and legacy, and below the surface, the mystery deepens. Another puzzle lies deep beneath the sands of Saqqara, at the mysterious and enigmatic Serapeum. A series of long, rock-cut tunnels, it houses 24 giant boxes made out of granite and other incredibly hard stone. Each weighing up to roughly 80 to 100 tons in some cases, carved, polished, and finished in situ under the bedrock. How were they able to get them in, move them, and then finish them underground? If these were simply sarcophagi for sacred bulls, as were told by the Egyptologists, they were the most over-engineered animal tombs in history. Also, nothing's ever been found inside them. Even when one of them was dynamited open, in modern times during the 19th century, it's because the lid couldn't be lifted. Whatever their purpose, they speak the same language of the scale and precision we see across Egypt. And what's perhaps most remarkable is that even today, we're still uncovering signs that the ancient builders may have worked on a scale we've only begun to grasp. Research from the Scan Pyramids project has revealed large internal voids within the Great Pyramid, while a separate investigation, known as the Khafre project, using synthetic aperture radar, claims to have detected a network of large, underground structures and vertical shafts extending deep beneath the Middle Pyramid at Giza, some reaching depths of several hundred meters beneath the surface. This is still preliminary research, but if it proves true, it could be one of the greatest discoveries of our time, and one that rewrites the entire history of humankind. And we already know there's more beneath the surface on the Giza Plateau. The Great Pyramid itself contains a subterranean chamber, and the Giza Plateau is littered with tunnels and shafts, some natural and others clearly engineered, like the Osiris shaft, which is located just south of the causeway that connects the Middle Pyramid to the Sphinx. And all of it suggests a world beneath the sand, a hidden layer of design and purpose that's still waiting to be understood. Whether it's buried beneath the sands or carved into monuments of remarkable size, the same sort of precision and craftsmanship appears again, this time on a much smaller scale. The same mystery shrinks down to the handheld size, with thousands of pre-dynastic vases, which are older than the dynastic period itself, made of granite and other hard stones. These vases come in a variety of different shapes and sizes, some as thin as eggshells and translucent, others so precisely balanced they spin like a top when placed on its bottom. Others are so precise and symmetrical, even a modern machinist would require a 5-axis CNC machine to even attempt to maintain this level of precision. And the challenge isn't just the shape and accuracy, it's the material itself. Granite and diorite and some of these hard stones are not homogeneous materials like steel and aluminum, so it's full of different stone types, particularly hard, quartzite inclusions that could fracture under the pressure of machining. Could it be done? Possibly, but I'm not yet aware of anyone who succeeded. Even my friend Karoli, who's an engineer and hosts the Ancient Technology podcast and is deeply involved with the VaseScan project, asked a company in China to replicate one just in stainless steel, and they said they couldn't do it because the inner surface would have been too complicated to machine. Across these sites, another feature appears as well, that of sudden abandonment. The third pyramid's casing stones left unfinished, the Osirian, partially carved down but halted during its construction, the unfinished block in the hallway of the Serapeum, and of course, the unfinished obelisk, frozen in place in the quarry at Aswan. It's as if the work simply stopped, not from failure per se, but from interruption. The same pattern of unfinished work appears elsewhere as well. At sites like Baalbek in Lebanon, the stone of the pregnant woman, weighing around 1,000 tons, sits unfinished in its quarry, and in places like Turkey at sites such as Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, where advanced stonework and construction was abruptly halted and allegedly buried, roughly 11,500 years ago at the end of the Younger Dryas. To when these sites date, geological evidence points to a cataclysmic event, sudden cooling, fires, and massive floods. Folks studying this, like the Cosmic Impact Group, suggest an impact, either cometary or asteroidal, that may have triggered this catastrophic shift. It's one of perhaps many that shaped our world over the eons of Earth's incredibly long timeline, where cataclysms have been relatively common.
The last 10,000 years since these events at the end of the Younger Dryas, the Holocene period in which we live today, have been relatively calm, however. So it seems we actually just live in a really quiet part of Earth's history.
So what does this all even mean? We've only just scratched the surface of the mysteries across ancient Egypt at a handful of the countless sites and anomalies that still defy explanation. There's far more to explore, but even from this small glimpse, we're left with essentially two possibilities. Either the dynastic Egyptians possessed knowledge and capabilities we still don't fully understand, or they inherited these foundations from an earlier, forgotten age.
Both are extraordinary possibilities and tell us that our current understanding of civilization and human history is incomplete. To me, Egypt isn't proof of aliens or outlandish fantasy, but it is proof that our current model and understanding of the past is incredibly due for an upgrade. The precision, the logistics, the sudden pause and unfinished work, these are not just myths, they're data points waiting for a better explanation.
If our current models and story of history can't explain what we see with our own eyes, it's not a reason to stop asking questions. It's a reason to revisit the drawing board and look for new solutions and new answers and bring a multidisciplinary team to the project. The stones are waiting. All we have to do is get out there and keep looking.